So anyway, they pumped the water out of it and got to put it in a dry dock. And there's a very special dry dock in Barbados, which is screws. And they run the boat into this cradle, and these screws turn and usually lifts the boat out in the water. It's there's only 2 or 3 of them in the world. But anyway, they did that. They had it surveyed, and I have the survey here if anybody wants to sit and interested in that kind of detail. And it was determined that the boat was sound. And so they tied it up at the dock, and Bill started working on it. And he needs electricity to do much work on the boat. And the electricity on this boat was a DC, not AC, like you have in your house. It's a DC current. And they had special generators to produce this DC current. And it wouldn't work. So he took the generator apart. It's a big DC, big thing. He took it apart, took the coils out of it, stretched the wire of the coils all around the shipyard, hired a young native to shellac all the wire of that coil, and then wound it back on, put it in the engine, and started. Right? So, well, it started anyway, but anyway, started producing electricity. Just ingenious. This guy could fix anything. And so then they had to start working on the engines because they were in terrible shape and were not running. And they took the heads off. Now the cylinders in this motor are just big as your steering wheel. They're huge. And then there are heads on the top of them, which weighed several hundred pounds. Well, they pulled the heads off and they started pounding lead into the cracks of the boat engine and the heads of the engine. But it got to where they couldn't get enough lead into the head of the engine to work. So Bill set these things, these big, the head is of each engine, each cylinder is big, this 3 by 3.5 feet, I think, and about 8 inches thick. We sent them down to a machine shop, and they ground out the top of the cylinder, or the top of I don't know how to say it. Anyway, they ground out the top of the hole for the engine piston with some they ground it out and then inserted a 1-inch thick iron plate into the top, put 2 big bolts up through to the top of it, and bolted that steel plate to the top of his cylinder. Then the secret was to find a gasket material that would keep the water out of the engine. A diesel engine runs by not spark plugs, but by pressure. When you pressurize diesel fuel enough, it will explode. And that's how a diesel engine works. As the piston comes up, it explodes without a spark plug and pushes it down. So you can't put any engine water in that because water will not compress. And it will destroy the engine if it tries to compress and it'll break something. So anyway, he did this, and they couldn't find a gasket material that would hold that tremendous pressure that was necessary. So I had just learned of Teflon about that time, and I took some Teflon down to them to try it, and it didn't work. And we hired an engineer from Miami to come down and help work on the boat. And he said he thought he knew there was a gas material that would hold. And he bid his salary that it would work. Well, he got some, they put it in that didn't work. And they said, well, maybe we need to put 2 layers of it in. And they put 2 layers of it, and it did work. It helped. So they finally had an engine that would run. However, they couldn't get the valve fitted properly. If you don't get the valve fitted properly, the pressure just blows by that valve into the bottom of the engine, and it won't explode. Then it can't get the pressure. So they kept trying to seat the valves, and seating the valves, what a valve, I imagine the valve is in that case was about this long with a head on it like this, and it has a dimple in the middle and then a long shaft. And they kept grinding on these valves, trying to seat it to make it tight. But when they start the engine, it wasn't tight. They couldn't get enough compression. So